I'm Nicholas Kuhne, founder of Wunderbrand, and we're going to deep dive into the world of branding, digital marketing, and entrepreneurship. My career includes working with some of the world's top brand and advertising agencies, as well as working at brands like Nando's, MTV, and Comedy Central, where for 20 years I've honed my expertise in building brands in emerging markets. Based here in Oslo, I lecture on digital marketing, helping the next generation of marketers navigate this dynamic world. I'm here to share powerful insights from my own journey and bring you the wisdom of leading voices in branding and marketing from across the globe. Whether you're an entrepreneur looking to scale, a student eager to learn, or a business seeking to elevate your brand, you're in the right place. Hello everyone, today we have Gee Ranasinha, and Gee's been in marketing since the days of dial-up internet and AOL CDs. Today he is the CEO of Kexino, an award-winning marketing agency. Over the past 16 years, Kexino has helped over 400 startups and small businesses in over 20 countries grow awareness, reputation, trust, and most importantly, sales. So Gee, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Nicholas.
So we are both agency men, and I can say men, literally, well, I'm not going to assume anything, but I'm just going to say we are advertising men, so we've got a bit of a slight similarity in our backgrounds and the kind of work that we do on a day-to-day basis. I see that you're a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, and you also lecture at business schools and especially with MBA classes, so that's quite exciting. Let's start off with the teaching side. And both of us have students, both of us have seen the sort of quality of students over the years. What are we going to do for these youngsters to prepare them for a world in which AI has transformed the workplace and probably made quite a lot of the jobs that they thought they were going to be going after much more difficult?
I think one of the issues that I've noticed anecdotally I've been teaching for 10 years now. One of the things I've noticed is that people don't question things anymore. The curiosity seems to have waned a lot over the years. I thought it was just a particular class that I was teaching, but actually since about 3 years ago I started teaching at another university, this marketing and behavioural science. The curiosity seems to have waned a lot within the student that we're getting for about certainly the last 3 or 4 years. And I think curiosity is such a fundamental tenet of what marketing should be about. Questioning the status quo. Why do we do things like we do them, right? Not necessarily tearing things down. There's the whole Chesterton's fence type argument going on. But just questioning why things are the way they are, to generate that curiosity and perhaps find other solutions to age-old problems. And I just don't see that. I think students, and sweeping generalisation, of course, but we have to make sweeping generalisations to make sense of any of this sort of stuff. They seem to just want to sort of sit there and listen, and maybe not even listen, but certainly sit there because they need to have signed the attendance paper, right? So they need to be there for the 4 or 6 hours or whatever it is that I'm ranting on about. I won't call myself a teacher because, I don't have any formal educational qualifications, teaching qualifications. I only got involved through the back door because a friend of mine who is an educator put me in touch with a business school who was looking to have somebody with real world marketing experience to teach a particular class. So I have the ultimate respect for real educators, but I got involved because I was frustrated. In my previous life, I was the CMO for a software company in Germany, and I was just fed up with getting these marketing graduates or interns who had fantastic CVs and had done amazingly well in their formal educational qualifications, but were as useful as a chocolate ashtray. They were just absolutely pathetic. You couldn't give them anything to do, Ask them to talk to you about blue ocean strategy or some other bullshit, fine, right? But actually give them something to do, and they were clueless. So you had to give them like losers' jobs, like database cleaning or some other crap. which thankfully we don't need to do now. We've got AI, right?
Yeah.
So I was always moaning and groaning about the quality of graduates that we were getting. And then I left and we started the agency, and a couple of years later, this friend of mine said, okay, now put your money where your mouth is, right? You're always moaning about the quality, so you can either be, part of the solution or part of the problem. So that's how I got involved. And to be honest, I loved it. I mean, I still do. I still love it. Unfortunately, the number of switched on students within a class seems to have diminished. And every now and again, when I get a particularly bad class, I just want to sort of throw it. I said, this is just not worth the effort, right? Because it is effort, right? And, standing up for 4 hours and talking, because I put my heart and soul into this stuff, right, Nicholas? I mean, I'm jumping around, I'm swearing, I'm dancing on tables. I'm really trying to get the stuff to get in between these people's ears. And every now and again I'll get a really crap class and I'll just think, no, this is just not worth the effort. And then there'll be like maybe a handful of people within that class who'll come up to me at the end of the last lesson and give me feedback on what they've seen and how I've opened their eyes into one particular area. And that's what keeps me going year after year. I'm teaching to like 5-10 people, right? I have to ignore the rest of them. The rest of them are just a waste of oxygen, right? Which is fine. And that's what keeps me going. But that whole curiosity thing and taking things as being carved in stone, I think is a very dangerous place to be, especially in the experimental nature of what marketing has always been, and it is even more today. Because otherwise what we're going to end up with is just following a recipe for everything and just copying and pasting regardless of the industry, of the audience, of the business, of the expected commercial result, and we're just doing everything by the numbers. In which case, obviously, as a business function, we are doomed as a unit of the business.
You covered quite a few points there. I think let's just start on the teaching side. I think a lot of people who go to universities and schools and so on forget that the teacher puts a lot of sort of psychic energy into the work. And as you said, you love your work. It gives you, it gives you lots of meaning, and you put in a lot of effort and time, and you've got to give energy. You can't be in front of the class just droning on, because then you're guaranteed to lose people. So there's the psychic energy that goes into it. What I teach at a vocational school. So I think for marketing, this is probably a better way to go about it than just going through the theoretical. But we do very practical work, practical exercises. For example, we work on TikTok, we create TikToks, we create posts, we create these things. Whereas I think, and I did a marketing and communications degree years ago, and it's not for everyone. It's like when you're doing mathematics at school and do calculus. Why am I learning calculus? Most people don't use much of what they've learnt in mathematics. The other aspect is we've been trained by the media and other messaging that we receive that everyone deserves a gold star and everyone is a unique little snowflake. And unfortunately, there are differences in individuals. Not everyone is going to rise to the top of the tree. It's very disappointing when you're in a class and you've got the potential to teach people to be top of the tree, that they don't actually take advantage of that. It is that curiosity. One interesting point that you made there is that following a set formula, things set in stone. If we look at Wix, if we look at Facebook and Google, everything is sort of templatized now. So if you want to do an ad, you do it this way. This is the way that you do it. It doesn't allow necessarily for that creativity, or it does if you're curious and you want to do something different. But everything has been and made sort of paint by numbers, and we forget that the majority of people are paint by numbers people. There's a reason universities in the olden days used to accept only the creme de la creme. I think nowadays it's just, if you put your name down, you're going to get in.
Yeah, no, today it's not creme de la creme. Today it's merde de la merde, I'm afraid. Do you like that? I just thought of that. And and you're absolutely right. And this whole templatization, I don't know if that's a word, but if not, we've just invented it.
It is now.
Patenting it right now, okay? Whole templatization of the concept is exactly the reason why the effectiveness of so much of marketing execution, especially within the online realm, is falling. If we've got all of these software aids, you can think about it in terms of customer audience profiles and retargeting pixels and remarketing tags and UTM codes and all of this crap that we've had for, 15 years, maybe longer, right? Yet we've had, you can call these things AI, right? We didn't call them AI at the time, we called them software, right? Which at the end of the day, these were tools. We've got all of this MarTech stuff around, yet the effectiveness is still dropping like a stone. It's unremarkable, instantly forgettable, total vanilla, generic fodder. It's nonsense. It's not even scroll worthy. So why is that? Because we're following the recipe. This, we're not doing baking. We're doing cooking, right? Baking. When you bake, I love cooking. I love to cook, but I can't stand to bake, because baking is chemistry, right? Baking, you have to measure shit. Sorry, are we allowed to swear on this podcast?
You are welcome to use as many expletives as you like.
Okay, I don't do it for dramatic effect, but it is there, and I do maintain that anybody who has a job within sales or marketing who doesn't swear cannot be trusted. Okay, so yeah, the point is, baking is chemistry. You have to measure shit, right? You can't go on an improvisation around, oh no, I haven't got this, I'm going to use that. Doesn't work, right? It's going to end up in tears. Baking, not my thing. Now, cooking, tasting while you're going, ooh, I tell you what, last time I didn't have to use so much salt, but this time I do, because of 101 other reasons. Maybe I'm going to put some marjoram in there instead of some thyme. Maybe I'm going to use some oregano instead of some rosemary. Maybe I don't have any rosemary, so I'm going to see what the hell I've got in the back of the cupboard. And for me, marketing is like cooking. You can make the same dish 101 times and it tastes different, right? There's more than one right answer. It's not a logical, rational process, an outcome. It's not like 1 + 1 always makes 2, right? There, as Rory Sutherland says, the opposite of a good idea can also be a good idea. There is more than one way to get to the right conclusion. And if we're looking to follow a methodology practice where this is the way you do it, guys, we're going to continue to get ever more crappier results from our execution. The only way we can break out of this is from questioning the status quo, experimenting, understanding the rules, because break the rules, you have to know what the rules are, right? So we have to do that bit first. That sort of thinking scares finance people to death, because finance people, economists, engineers, they work on a very different set of rules, right? They work on this Newtonian model. 1 + 1 is always 2. We have total utility, total transparency, and we have total information on every stage of the process. And if you're in manufacturing and you're making widgets, right, then the object of the exercise is to increase the efficiency of the system, which may be finding a supplier which gives you the more materials for a lower cost, or it may be finding a new material which is better, faster, cheaper, or it may be supplying it in red because nobody else does it in red, they all do it in blue, or it may be optimizing the actual system, right? The machine, maybe you buy a new widget making machine, whatever it may be, okay? But that doesn't work in marketing because we don't have total transparency of information. so much of what the levers that we can pull are based upon variables which cannot be quantified, measured, and certainly communicated across business units in easily describable measurement terms, right? A kilogram is always a kilogram. A litre is always a litre, right? That's great. But if you're thinking in a marketing term where the object of our goal is anything but rational, because we're dealing with human beings, right? Human beings aren't rational, right? They're not logical, right? When you're dealing with human beings, if we look at the emotional drivers that affect a buying purchase, many of them do not have standard interchangeable units of measurement. There's no such thing as an SI unit of fear or anger or happiness, right? Yet these are all things which can affect purchasing decision, right? But because we can't measure them, certainly you can't easily measure them, finance people, economists, dismiss them. And the problem is, especially once you get to middle management, or certainly definitely in the C-suite, the people around the boardroom table are generally from a, let's call it a classical economics type background. They're engineers or they're finance people, MBA, classical, 1+1.
You can say bean counter on this program. Yeah.
Good. Or has been counter probably is more accurate, right? And that's on one side of the coin. Looking at it from the bean counter's perspective, is we as marketers suck at marketing ourselves to the C-suite. When we go into the boardroom, which is very rare, right? Because we're seen as some woo-woo, hippy-dippy, West Coast, tie-dye, believe in the power of the crystal, right? When we are there, we start using all this terminology and jargon that we all use between ourselves in marketing land. But anybody outside of marketing land is scared shitless of. So when you start talking about resonance and salience, and mental availability and all of this sort of stuff, pragmatists, they want to run a mile. It's like, what the hell is all of this nonsense? Marketing 101, know your audience, right? And position your communication accordingly. We don't do that. When marketers are in the boardroom, we need to speak board. And we don't. We still speak marketer, which is why we're ridiculed at the higher echelons of business.
I agree and disagree to a sense. I agree in the point that most businesses obviously need to turn a profit unless you're an NGO, but even NGOs need to generate cash. I've worked in software as well, and software marketing in Malaysia, where we were selling enterprise performance management software to likes of Kimberly-Clark and Asahi and PepsiCo. And from a marketing perspective, they had the sales side, they had HR, they had all the production side, for example, but there was no way, as you mentioned, to integrate marketing into it properly. You can put in how many emails you've sent, you can put in your social media likes, etc. There was no module that you could stick in that would give them, if I spend 10 ringgit on this ad, how many ringgit am I going to get on the other end? It was purely on the production side. And that's where marketing is the magic side, because I can spend 10 ringgit somewhere and get 1,000 ringgit return if it's a marketing campaign that really resonates. And
absolutely. It's a force multiplier.
Gets into the mind space of the consumer. But it's not something that you can necessarily quantify. You never know what is going to win and what's going to take off in popular culture, etc. So it is a tough position. So I think, to your point, marketers need to be able to balance the art and the science of marketing in order to sell a crazy concept that might just work. versus we're going to balance that by doing social media, we're going to do this many emails, we're going to get this many eyeballs on a program, we're going to run these programs in store to drive sales. So I think that balance is missing in quite a few folks. But back to your point on the quality of marketers and the sort of the templatization of marketing, is that it's not going to get any better with ChatGPT, that's for sure.
No, the thing is, we're at the stage where things are going to get worse before they get better, right? People are going to... I was speaking with a copywriter yesterday, and she was very worried. Once everybody thinks that GPT started 2.5 years ago, when actually it's been going a hell of a lot longer. All they did was put a nice interface on the end of it, right? It's been around. There's a reason why it started off at version 3. Right, the clue's in the name, right? And she was very worried a couple of years ago because she thought she wasn't going to get any work because everybody was just going to use ChatGPT. And what's happened is the opposite. She's actually busier than she's ever been. And I said to her, to which she agreed, that's because people thought that they could exorcise the provider out of the equation until they tried it and found it was an absolute car crash. And again, wasn't generating any effectiveness measurements at the end of the day, like we were talking about earlier on with Facebook ads, or any ads, not just singling out Facebook. All ad platforms are as bad as each other. So I think that's where we are. We're at the point where, hey, I can cut these people out of that process and do it myself, until we get to the point where, okay, let's actually have a look at the numbers, where the rubber meets the road, and see where we are compared to where we were this time last quarter, this time last year. And that's when the whole thing says, oh yes, well, that's because the environment is much different, the economy is like this, the competitors are better. No, everything. You can blame everybody else, right? It's sunspots, it's 5G, it's flat earthers, it's God, whatever, right? It's everybody else's fault apart from you. But the thing is, you've got plausible deniability because you say, look at my methodology, look at my rigor. Look, I'm showing you my working out. So, boss, you can't fire me, because I've done it rationally, logically, with a rational process. But it doesn't matter, because it hasn't generated sales. We are all in sales. The object of the exercise is to sell more shit than the other guy, rinse and repeat. So if you're not contributing to the bottom line of the organisation from a commercial result perspective, then you are a liability. It's not marketing unless it sells. Anything else is fluff. It's nonsense. It's noise versus signal. Now, the time frame is something where many people need to be educated on, especially, and I spend a lot of time educating clients on what they can actually look on in return, because they expect it to be a tap, a spigot. You turn the tap on and something happens. And, if you're looking within a paid environment, that's certainly the case. Great. You start spending money with any particular ad platform, you will get eyeballs. And whether they're the right eyeballs, whether those eyeballs result in leads, prospects which result in sales, different matter. But you will get traffic, you will get eyeballs, you will get leads, you will get whatever you're using to measure the efficacy of what you're doing. However, as soon as you stop spending money, all of that dries up. It's gone. Which is the reason why we do things like content marketing and SEO and 101 other bits and pieces, which are a slower burn. They don't generate instant effects. What we do today may not have a commercial, tangible result for weeks, months, maybe even years into the future. But it's also the reason why, for instance, why is it when we have an economic downturn, marketing is the first thing that gets cut and the last thing to put back? Because You can be flying a 747 and turn the engines off, and the 747 is still flying. It doesn't drop out of the sky, right? So everybody thinks, what the fuck have we been wasting our money with marketing all these years, right? Everything's fine and dandy. It's whoopee-doo. Everything's great, right? And that's the point. Because of this latency and cause and effect, and also, of course, there's the whole in-market, out-of-market stuff, right? 95% of the people who see your messaging, who are possible prospects at some point in time, are not ready to buy at that particular time they see your message. The chances of you showing them a message at the exact time that, oh, that's really good, because you know what? I was just about to spend $100,000 on a CRM, right? Doesn't happen. So that I'm more familiar with the B2B environment than I am B2C. So that's why I tend to sort of refer back to B2B examples. Yeah. So when you compound those two things and then try to mechanize, industrialize elements of marketing which really shouldn't be mechanized, we end up with the crisis that we're in with marketing at the moment.
Well, it gives you those short-term gains if you do mechanize or digitalize certain activities. But to your point, it goes into the customer journey. Not everyone is ready to buy immediately. It takes time. And obviously with the bean counters and folks like that, they want immediate results. And the only way to do immediate results is to cut corners or to use techniques that are going to like a drug addiction. You just need that quick fix, but then you're going to have something that's going to give you the upper, the downer, etc. And we're sort of stuck in that sort of addiction cycle in marketing, similar to customers, where we just want these highs the whole time. And maintaining those highs gets more and more expensive and sometimes more damaging for the organization. I wanted to touch a little bit on customer journey and how many clients that you've dealt with actually have a good mapped out customer journey, and if you work on customer journeys with customers.
Well, we specialize in startups and small businesses, so that probably answers your question. They've got what they think is a good idea that they think they can commercialize, but beyond that, the vast majority of our clients have absolutely no idea of customer journeys, of number of touch points, channels, research, quant, segmentation, targeting, nothing, absolutely nothing. And they get very frustrated when I insist we go through this initial process. We call it discovery, but different agencies call it different things. I'm probably you call it something else. But that basic, right? Let's do the diagnosis, right? Actually understand the business result that the marketing plan is set to address. I understand what the business goals are for the organization. What's the 3-year plan? Is it to exit? Is it to IPO? Is it just supposed to be a lifestyle company? These are all valid arguments. I'm not criticizing any, but we need to know what the hell is going on before we can start looking at putting together practicable solutions. Once we go, and the thing is, nobody wants to go through all of that stuff because they just want to get to the sexy bit. They just want to start talking about ads and all the tactical crap, right? So it's the ads and the emails and the webinars and the podcasts and the blog articles and the whatever else, okay? But until we can actually get our ducks in a row right up front, as you know, the wheels are going to fall off, right? So it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. You hit upon a very good point in terms of urgency and time frame. Why is the average tenure of a CMO 14 months? Because they're appointed and asked to generate a tangible result based upon a business quarter. Because that's the reporting structure that they have within the organization, which they have to report to at the C-suite shareholder level. And if they can't show a major uptick, we're not talking about tenths of a percent here,
yeah,
then all of a sudden the CMO is on borrowed time. But if marketing has been screwed up at a very fundamental endemic level, which is often the case because we've got this churn of marketing people again and again who aren't performing because they're not given enough time to perform, right? If we've got the latency of effectiveness built into that, how the hell can you supposed to turn everything around on a dime? Especially when we look at marketing as a core business function that presides across the organization and not just vertically down through the organization, right? The problem may be R&D, the problem may be pricing, the problem may be distribution, right? We can go into the whole 4 Ps, 5 Ps, 6 Ps, however many Ps you think it is, right? And I don't know how many Ps are right. However many Ps you want to think about. But, you speak to most businesses and at a board level, and they're talking about pricing, and somebody suggests to have marketing in that table, they'll think you're mad. What? Why the hell would we have marketing around the table? Well, I suppose they could do a deck. I suppose put some nice graphics together for a report. Why the hell else would we have like I said, we don't do ourselves justice, right? We don't deserve to have the seat at the table, right? And that's why, as a marketing function, we don't stay there long. So this whole the point that you were making about the urgency and the turnover, I think, is very valid, and it just makes our job that much harder, because if you look across at the other business units, there is much more of a cause and effect process in place. Where with marketing, especially, we haven't even talked about attribution yet, right? But especially when you start getting into that, it starts getting extremely vague and difficult, if not impossible, to measure. And since every other core element of the business units can measure to the nth degree, when marketers push back and say, well, no, we can't measure at that sort of a granular level, because you can't say this one particular piece of content was responsible for an uptick in sales, even if it's retrograded.
But I do think we're going to get to that stage potentially where we are able to get more granular detail on how our messaging is impacting on people. Obviously, it means we need more data. And with AI and with mobile, everyone's stuck on their mobile phones and be able to respond quicker to surveys and that, we should actually be able to get more information quicker and slightly more detail. The problem is that people lie as well, so they don't always tell the truth. So there's that aspect. And to your point about the lack of tenure in marketing as a CMO, it's because we're like the politicians. There's always a new shiny thing in marketing, whereas in accounting and production and logistics, nobody sees that. Also, nobody really cares about that much. I mean, as marketing is the outward reflection of the organization and the business, and it's the quickest thing to fix in one sense. Get in a new shiny face, get in some new shiny technology, get in on the latest trends like TikTok and
logo.
AI,
change the logo.
Exactly. Whereas you can't necessarily change an accounting process in a business that quickly. It takes a long time, and people understand it takes a long time. But marketers handicap themselves by saying, oh yes, we can have it next week. And the technology doesn't help us, because you literally can roll out a new logo in a week. So we've sort of shot ourselves in the foot, but it's because that is the nature of marketing, and it is ephemeral. It is more art than science. And there are obviously more scientific aspects of marketing that people can work on, but companies that are driven on just science generally don't have terribly much soul. You can have a look at Google, for example. Because we live in a capitalist society where you can have 1,000 different types of soap, you have to shout louder and be different in order to stand out. So there's still obviously a good role for marketing, and these challenges will continue to afflict us over time, but this is the career we chose. We didn't choose law or accounting or economics. So in Afrikaans, there's a lovely saying where you've cut a switch to smack your own ass, basically. So Yeah.
Yes, you've made your own bed, you lie in it.
Yeah, there we go.
I prefer the Afrikaans version, to be honest.
Ek pluk 'n lot vir sy eie gat, which, yeah, it's very funny in Afrikaans.
Okay.
Yeah. So you were talking that your focus is more on B2B. There's obviously a huge difference between B2B marketing and consumer marketing, direct-to-consumer marketing. And that's probably something we can go into in another episode.
Think back to like the vaudeville days of the US when you had people on the stage who sucked and you had this hook that sort of dragged people off the stage. That's what you need to do with me, because otherwise I'm like Il Duce on the balcony, right?
To your credit, you did give a caveat before we joined to saying that you can talk the hind leg off a donkey. So I was forewarned.
I think I've probably proven that.
Next time, I think we need to talk specifically B2B marketing and some of the techniques there. I think this is a getting to know you discussion, as I mentioned. And we've covered a couple of interesting points, from education to some of the pitfalls of AI and templatization of marketing. So next time, I'm sure we'll have some interesting points and pearls to fling in front of our audience as well, that we can share with you. So, Gee, it's been a great pleasure chatting to you, and I hope we can do this again.
I had a great time, Nicholas. It was great to meet you. It was great to have a chat about things that bug us about the industry. Hopefully, you know, it's not all doom and gloom. There are silver linings in many of these clouds, and I don't want to sort of paint a bad picture, but I'm just saying that there's too many people who call themselves marketers who haven't got a frigging clue what they're doing, and it's bringing it down for everybody else.
I agree, and I think it's part of our job to bring awareness to this to the rest of the market.
Absolutely.
So they know who the quality guys are.
I'm doing it. I've got nothing to plug. I've got no book to sell. The only reason why I do this sort of stuff is to hopefully help someone dodge a bullet. That's it. I don't want them to get caught by a marketing bro.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want those you know what a marketing bro is, right? You know, these guys who, you know, crouching in front of Lambo throwing gang signs, you know, these guys, right? And there are plenty of them out
You've
there.
obviously been looking at my LinkedIn and Twitter profiles, so I feel very offended right now because my Lamborghini, I've just had it washed. So it's in the garage. Where can I send folks if they want to read a little bit more about Gee and some of the work that you do and services that you potentially can provide?
Well, to find out about me, the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. And I don't know if you'd know this, Nicholas, this is quite amazing fact, but if you search, there's only one Gee Ranasinha on LinkedIn.
Does sound rather unbelievable, to be honest.
Absolutely. So you can find me on LinkedIn. That's the best place to get hold of me. For the agency, it's Kexino, Kexino. You can find us pretty much everywhere. Too many places, to be honest, but, you know, you have to kiss a lot of frogs before you find the princess, right? So that's what we did.
Excellent. Well, I'll stick the links in the description and hope to get to chat to you again soon, Gee.
Thanks again for the opportunity, Nicholas. It was great talking with you.